Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of O's Ship Show. I'm Freddie Laker and this is my friend Juan-Carlos Morales.
What up?
And this week we're going to be talking to you about the creative process.
Oh shit.
I know Juan hates talking about himself. I've known him for 20 years, so I know that extremely well. So here's a little clip on Juan.
I'm Juan-Carlos Morales. I've been in the business of design for about 20 years. In the last 20 years, I've done everything from print design to web design to app design to consulting. I've helped clients build creative organizations within their business, help them be more design-centric and adopt more design thinking methodologies. I think at my core, I would say I'm a problem solver. I love going into companies and helping them figure out how they can solve problems in a more creative way.
When I introduced Juan before that clip, you may have noticed that it almost sounds like I said Wong. This is a lifelong issue that I've had with people misunderstanding who he is when I introduce him to other people. So there is in fact Juan, not Wong.
I think the sad part is that people get let down when I'm not Japanese.
Yeah.
They're just like, I thought you were, like, what's going on?
Yeah, we had a whole office in England who was convinced he was Asian and kind of went wrong, but that's my weird accent for you. Anyway, back to subject, we're gonna focus. So I wanna talk about the creative process this week. Juan and I have worked together for 20 years. We've been building websites in the 90s. We co-founded a digital agency together called iChameleon. We worked at a giant digital agency called Sapient together, where he was the ECD, and we're doing creative work together even now with new clients. And the creative process is complicated. It's subjective. Some of you who out there who've been through this, when you do a technical project, there's a scope. There's a clearly defined deliverable. You know what the start is, you know what the middle looks like, you know what the end looks like, and it's very measurable. But creative is subjective. What's good to you is not good to him. Absolutely. It may not be good to me. And that's a really painful process to go through. And I'd love to understand, you've got an incredible background, an incredible career doing this at the highest levels. How do you manage the creative process?
I think that the common misconception is that creative has like a wonderful idea and then they immediately chase after that idea and then the client loves it and we launch it and it's great, but that never happens. Yeah. I think that the value of strategy in the creative process is to define like what is right? Because I think helping the client understand in their own thoughts what their subjectivity towards creative is really what we're doing in the strategy phase, right? We're kind of trying to understand how we're going to judge the creative afterwards, essentially.
But then you always get that client who goes, I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah.
I know you've run into that one.
I have. And you know what? Those are actually the hardest clients to deal with because I think that kind of getting in their head, which is really the thing that you want to do. You want to try to understand what is it that they want, right? What are they expecting out of the creative or out of the design? And when they give you the "I'll know it when I see it," that basically just means you're going to keep throwing darts at it until you get it. And sometimes you get it quick. Sometimes you take 6, 7, 8 rounds of revisions to get there.
Oh, brutal. I gotta know I've been down that journey with you before.
Absolutely.
Historically, you've always been on the agency side. Lately, we've been working together
on the consulting
within an organization as an internal creative director. Does that feel different at all to you, or does it still feel like there's some
totally different?
Totally different.
Yeah, I think working at an agency, creative and the crazy parts about creative are well understood and anticipated. People respect it and they get it. They understand how hard what we do is. I think that when you go to an organization that maybe creative wasn't in their DNA, we're like voodoo doctors. Right? People think that what we do is magic and they don't realize that there is a process and there is a formula to trying to get to an outcome. And I think that's very different, right? I wasn't used to at first going to a place and not having that crazy a little respected. Yeah. It's like, why can't you do this in a day? And it's like, well, because I don't know. It could take 3 days. Who knows?
Also, some people, everyone feels that they can be creative. I think on some level.
Yeah, but funny story. So I was actually doing an interview for a big promotion at one of my previous jobs, and one of the guys, when I was explaining myself to him, telling him what I do, I said,
So I'm a creative director.
I actually said I'm in the business of creative,
Yeah.
right? And I've been in that business for 20 plus years. And he said, well, I'm creative. We're all creative, aren't we? And I said, well, yeah, some of us do it as a job, like as a profession, you know, not as a hobby. And that baffled him. He just couldn't understand. But again, he didn't grow up in the agency world, I guess the way we did, and that wasn't a normal thing for him.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I hate it. That really hurt, by the way. I was just like, what do you mean? Like my life's work was like diminished in 2 seconds.
He's like, that's cute. I'm creative as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I'm cutting construction paper at home, right? Isn't that what we all do?
I have to ask this. It's one of my favorite things on a ship. I've shared many stories that later I went and watched the episode, and I was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have told that story, but you know, here we are. But if you had to pick an ship, like, you know, kind of went crazy wrong, but you pulled off in the end. You know, pulled off in the end. Have you got any kind of ship stories?
You know,
you can share us?
the one I can think of, and I won't get specific on the you know, the
For legal
companies,
reasons.
right? Exactly. But you know, I had a client that was a really great client. They pushed us to do really great work on a regular basis, and every time I would interact with the client would ask me, you know, are you pushing us enough?
Yeah.
And I would always be like, yeah, totally, absolutely. We are pushing you as hard as we can to do the best work we can possibly do. But then the work started kind of going astray, right? The brief that we got from one of their teammates, I thought was just kind of not so great.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I thought I was going to have the team come up with a totally different idea and then present it to the client, and they were going to see how their own brief was bad, and that we were going to totally change the brief for them. And we did come up with a really great idea, but you know, we had worked maybe about a month on it, and then when the client saw it, they were like, no, this is shit, I don't like it. And I was just heartbroken. And it was one of those things where I played my card, and I maybe shouldn't have, and I said, hey, you told me to push you. I'm pushing you, and now you don't want to be pushed. And that didn't go so well.
Yeah.
Client didn't like that at all.
Was that the end of the relationship?
End of the relationship. And you know, and it was one of those things where afterwards I realized that yes, you can absolutely try to push your vision, and you could absolutely try to push the client to a more creative place, but ultimately they're your client. Ultimately there is a relationship that you have to build and foster with that other person, and sometimes that means not, you know, calling their babies ugly.
I think that may have been the end of a relationship, but I can actually think of an ship moment at the beginning of a relationship that I know about you that I think I might share.
What's that?
And you know, this person, luckily we're still friends with and may actually watch this video, but so I remember when you and I first started traveling together in the beginning of iChameleon, the agency that we did together. We were in the south of France at the Cannes Lions.
Yeah.
And we had gotten a dinner with some very important clients, which involved Coca-Cola, and we had this guy, Jonathan Mildenhall, who was the global head of creative excellence at Coca-Cola. It was big deal to us. Ended up becoming the CMO of Airbnb. Really impressive guy. And we got them out to dinner, and we're at this super fancy tasting menu. It's like 10 courses, 12 courses, whatever crazy thing it was. And you really just started to travel internationally at this point. And I remember them bringing, you know, this course out, and the course was, and I kid you not, chilled pigeon brain with a thin jelly on the top.
It still makes me cringe, man.
So, you know, when you've been friends with someone a really long time, and like, you know, he and I can glance at each other. Glance is 100 words. And I remember being at that meal, and Jonathan was next to me. I was here. Juan was ahead of me on the other side, and he there was an important client, and you weren't going to embarrass us. And I remember you, every bite just fixed, just locked eye to eye. And every bite was like, oh, we're going to talk about this later. Everyone, is it good?
Delicious.
So good. You made it through that.
Yeah, they didn't serve pigeon brain in Hialeah, man. So that was the first for me.
I think that was my first too, but that was definitely an ship moment for me that we navigated.
Yeah, and you know what? I think we did a lot of things like that when we started iChameleon, right? I mean, I think that we had to keep the business going, and we were pushing everything that we possibly could to like make that business happen. So I would have eaten pigeon brain, and I'll do it again if I have to. But
I appreciate that sentiment.